This is Sportscentre.
Hey, I'm Mr. Brennan. We are officially one day into NHL free agency. And while probably way too early to do so, we thought it'd be fun to give out some draft grades so far to Canadian teams. But that's exactly what we're going to do today. And who else are we going to start with but the Toronto Maple Leafs? They made headlines by officially moving on from Mitch Marner in a sign-in trade with the Vegas Golden Knights in exchange for Nick Roy. And while moving on from a 100-point scorer is never ideal, given the circumstances, it's hard to think Toronto could have done better. Especially considering without the sign-in trade, they would have lost him for nothing. But instead, they took a productive bottom-six center and Stanley Cup champ. And when considered, the Leafs were able to sign all three of Matthew Knies, John Tavares, and Steven Lorentz, two relatively team-friendly deals, and bring in Matias Maccelli from Utah, you can't help but feel this offseason was somewhat of a success. So all things considered, we are giving Toronto an A-. And this is not my bias, I did not write this. Realistically, they probably deserve a B, but we just want to get you going in the comments. Toronto wasn't the only team making big deals, as Vancouver got in on the action by striking deals with three of their own. And while it's a win to keep these three talents in Vancouver, contracts themselves are a bit interesting, especially Thatcher Demko's. Once it kicks in during the 26-27 season, the Canucks will be paying their two goalies $13 million a year, which is quite the investment for a tandem that missed the playoffs last year. But that said, returning two of your top scorers and your top goalie is a good thing, so we're giving the Canucks a solid B. Next up, we're going to group a bunch of teams in the C range, and that's because none of them really made any big moves. The biggest from all four was the Canadians acquiring Zachary Bolduc, but considering they lost a few other players in free agency, it still evens out to a C- grade. But there's one Canadian team left we still haven't talked about, and they are by far the biggest losers, and that is the Edmonton Oilers. While we can give Edmonton some credit for coming to terms with Evan Bouchard, and for bringing in Andrew Mangiapane, they lost too many big pieces in Corey Perry, Connor Brown, and John Klingberg. But above all else, they still have not addressed goaltending. Well, that alone could warrant an F. Re-signing Bouchard at least bumps their grade to the D range. But hey, it's only July 2nd. There's still lots of time to improve these grades. Speaking on the ice but going international, we got some huge news this morning, as according to our guy Chris Johnston, as the NHLPA, NHL, IIHF, and IOC have officially signed the agreement to bring the NHL back to the Olympics next winter. This is very exciting indeed. It's a huge win all around for hockey, but probably the biggest win for Canada in particular, as the Canadians won gold in men's ice hockey in 3 of the 5 Olympics that featured NHL talent. And of course, coming off a thrilling overtime victory at the Four Nations face-off in February. So will they be the favorites in Milan next year? Only time will tell, and I feel like we can start to lay the groundwork here. We gotta go to Milan somehow with the show, okay? Somebody start a petition right now. To the association, we had a wild couple of days to start NBA free agency, as we saw some major moves made with potential contenders. So let's bring in our guy Wes Cheng. Great to see you, Wes.
Hey, great to see you, Marissa.
It's been an interesting start to free agency, but we gotta focus on Raps, as they pretty much are racking it back from last year. Obviously with the Brandon Ingram addition, who we did not see last year. Right now, is this the playoff team?
I'd bet on it. Yeah, I'd bet on the Raptors with a dart throw chance to be top 6. But if you look at the teams that are set up to be in the play-in tournament right now, Raptors easily could be one of the most competitive outs during that stretch. I think the main thing, though, you nailed it right off the top. The whole gamble of this season is the wild card that is Brandon Ingram. He will ultimately dictate whether or not this season goes well or not. They need a closing time alpha score. They didn't have that last year. Scotty, to his credit, all-star level player, not a closer. Brandon Ingram can fill that role out well. I think they have the infrastructure in place, and they could be kind of like a Pacers team where they run 10 deep, have a lot of guys flying through, and then who knows, they could be competitive just like Indiana kind of shot out of nowhere.
Who do you think improved the most through the first 2 days of free agency?
I like what Denver's done. I think they're in really good shape to make a series championship run next year. Jokic, a controversial take it or leave it, Jokic is still the best player in the world. So no matter what, as long as you have enough pieces around him, they should be competitive. They took OKC to 7. I love the swap out for Cam for MPJ. I think Cam Johnson's a good buy low, underrated asset. Then you get Tim Hardaway Jr., you get Bruce Brown in the fold, you get that swap for JV. I just think they've now added so much depth that as long as health permitting, Denver has more than enough to get back to exactly where they were this postseason with a lot of veteran pieces that could take them potentially all the way to the finals.
Wes Cheng, a pleasure as always.
Hey, thanks for having me.
And be sure to check out Wes Cheng and the boys on YouTube for the latest episode of Basketball Island. Time now for my favorite segment and yours, We Love Sports Today.
Why we love sports today.
Summer's officially here, so you know what that means. Break out the water videos, baby.
Oh my god.
I mean, is this easier or harder than skiing? Feels harder, no? Let's go to soccer because the transfer window is officially open. And we got some massive news from who else? Fabrizio Romano in the middle of the night. As Canadian Jonathan David to Juventus got the official Fabrizio, here we go. Both sides reportedly reached a verbal agreement overnight, with all details on a long-term deal reportedly worked out. And David's set to undergo a medical before the paperwork is signed. In his 5 years at Lille, David hit double-digit goals in Ligue 1 every single year. And this past season had a great 16 goals, 5 assist campaign in France's top flight. But what got a lot of teams interested was his stellar play in Champions League, where he scored 7 goals and added 2 assists in 8 starts. So let's bring our guy Shooter in real quick. Outside of Juve, was he close to joining any other big clubs?
Well, Marissa, where do I start? Because over the last number of years, Atletico Madrid, Aston Villa, Tottenham Hotspur, West Ham United, Inter Milan, Napoli, and especially Juventus have always been interested in Jonathan David. But what's changed over the last 10 days, I'm hearing from Jonathan David's camp, is that Juventus were willing to pay Jonathan David as a starter. And consider this. 7 years ago, Jonathan David was in the Ottawa development system playing for the Ottawa Internationals. Now he's going to be leading the attack of one of the biggest clubs on the planet. I know Canada's Gold Cup run did not go well, but today, Jonathan David going to Juventus is still a massive achievement for the men's program.
Matthew Scianitti, a pleasure as always.
Thanks, Marissa.
That's it for today. I'm Sarah picking tomorrow 3 Eastern, no Pacific. Have a good one.